He hasn't missed a single morning in 3 months. Not one. Same grave, same time, same impossible hope. Every day at dawn, in the quiet town of Silver Ridge, Michigan. A German shepherd named Axel bolts from his backyard and runs a mile. Across town to the cemetery, rain or snow, weekday or Sunday. He doesn't stop to sniff, doesn't hesitate at intersections. He goes straight to the grave, marked Lily Rose Miller, beloved daughter, forever 8. And he digs, not randomly, not playfully, with purpose, with grief, with something that looks a whole lot like desperation. At first it was just Axel, one dog, scratching obsessively at a child's grave, like he was trying to dig her back from the dead. But now there are 10 of them, 10 dogs, different breeds, different families, all gathering at dawn like it's church. Their paws tear at the same small patch of earth as if they know something the rest of the town doesn't. And maybe they do. You ever see a dog cry? You will stay with us because this story isn't just about a girl who vanished. It's about a dog who never gave a panda secret that was never meant to be unearthed. 6 months earlier, Lily Miller had been declared drowned at Maple Creek Lake, a place where children swam every summer. And no one ever thought to fear. Her body was never recovered. There were tears. There were casseroles. There was a funeral with an empty casket. Her parents, Jacob and Emily, placed Lily's favorite books, a teddy bear, and a handmade bracelet inside, then buried her without truly believing she was gone. Axel, who'd been Lily's best friend since her 8th birthday, had to be sedated at the burial. He howled for hours after the crowd left. Neighbors said they'd never heard anything like it, that it didn't sound canine, that it sounded human. 3 months later, the grave started bleeding dirt again. This time, from a dog's claws, Jacob Miller, a former Army Ranger turned construction foreman, hadn't worked since the accident. He wandered the house like a ghost, surviving on black coffee and pain. Emily, a 2nd-grade teacher, returned to school after 2 weeks. Though her lessons were often interrupted by sudden exits and red-rimmed eyes, the only thing that hadn't stopped moving was Axel. He's grieving, the vet had said. Dogs can mirror trauma. He just needs time. But this wasn't grief. This was obsession. Each morning at 5:47 a.m., Axel would leap the fence no matter how high Jacob rebuilt Itan's sprint to Silver Ridge Cemetery. There, beneath a marble headstone shaped like a sleeping angel, he would dig until someone dragged him home. By the 3rd week, he'd been joined by a Labrador from down the street, then a Border Collie, then a mutt with a limp from 3 blocks. Over all dogs, all focused on Lily's grave, Frank Hollis, the cemetery caretaker, finally had enough. "I want Em gone," he told Sheriff Ben Walker, slamming the tailgate of his pickup. "This ain't natural, Ben. I've been filling the same damn hole every afternoon. Next morning, it's back." Sheriff Walker stood quietly by the fence, watching the pack of dogs dig in eerie unison. "Look at Em," Frank muttered. "They're not barking, not growling, just ... working. Like they know what's down there." Walker didn't answer. He just stared at the one dog he couldn't ignore. Axel, the German shepherd, paused in his digging, glanced up, and locked eyes with the sheriff. There was no fear in those amber eyes. No aggression. Just a question. Why aren't you listening? Want more stories like this? Subscribe now to Heroes for Animals, where the animals aren't just companions. They're the ones who uncover what we can't. Emily Miller tried to explain it to her students, the way you might describe a bad dream. "Still waits by her door," she said to a fellow teacher during lunch. "He listens, like he expects her voice." She didn't say that Axel had stopped eating his kibble, or that he'd begun sleeping in Lily's closet, curled around her shoes, like they still had her scent. She didn't say that Jacob had started recording Axel's morning escapes, hoping to find meaning in the footage, and she certainly didn't mention what Margaret Ellis, their 72-year-old neighbor, had told her the day before. The woman had whispered through the screen door, that day at the lake. Emily had leaned in, not breathing. "I saw Axel break his leash. He didn't run toward the lifeguards or the dock. He ran the other way, toward the old boathouse." Emily's voice trembled. "But the witness Tyler Kenhe," said he, "saw Lily go under by the dock." Margaret nodded slowly. "He pointed there, yes, got everyone looking that way, but your dog," he wasn't fooled. "The drowning had been quick, according to Tyler Kane. A newcomer to town, he claimed to have been walking along the shore when he spotted a child struggling past the buoys. His shouting triggered lifeguards, swimmers, chaos, and yet no body ever surfaced. You know how these things go, Dr. Edward Collins had said during a town meeting. The lake connects to the river. The current could have taken her. He signed the death certificate without a corpse, but now, 6 months later, a growing number of people were starting to whisper what Sheriff Walker had never stopped believing. Lily didn't drown. Maybe she disappeared, and maybe just Mabia dog named Axel had known it all along. Jacob sat on the porch that night, watching Axel gnaw a hole through the screen door in frustration. "I've locked him in every room, every garage, every damn shed," he muttered to the sheriff, who'd stopped by unannounced. "He finds a way out." Every time, Sheriff Walker sipped his coffee, then spoke softly. "I think it's time we open the casket." Jacob flinched. "It's empty." Walker turned to him. "You said that. But if the whole town saw it opened, if we all saw it together, maybe we stop arguing about whether these dogs are crazy. And if it's really empty," Jacob asked. Walker looked out into the dark where Axel sat at full attention, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Then we're not digging up a grave," he said. "We're digging up the truth." No one talked on the way to the cemetery. Sheriff Ben Walker drove his squad car slow and quiet through the early morning fog. Headlights off in the back seat, Jacob Miller sat stone-faced, Axel resting his chin. On Jacob's lap, the German shepherd's ears flicked with every crunch of gravel, every breath of wind. Emily rode in a separate vehicle, flanked by 2 deputies and holding tightly to her sister's hand. She hadn't wanted to come, insisted, "If it's empty, we have to be there to see it. We have to know." By the time they arrived, a dozen townsfolk had already gathered beyond the yellow police tape, bundled in jackets and flannel shirts, some holding thermoses, some holding each other. Word had gotten out. In a town like Silver Ridge, secrets don't stay buried long, especially not the kind dug up by dogs. The sky was low and gray, the kind of color that steals the shine off everything. The small white casket lay just beneath the sod, where it had been placed 6 months ago, beneath a marble angel with folded wings and the inscription, "Forever 8." Sheriff Walker approached the grave workers and nodded. No machinery, just shovels. They'd decided this had to be done by hand. The crowd hushed as the first clods of earth came up. No one moved, even the air seemed to freeze. Axel sat quietly beside Jacob, tail still, eyes locked on the grave like he was waiting for something. Only he could hear after half an hour of digging. The edge of the casket was exposed, mud-caked, weather-stained, but otherwise intact. Dr. Rachel Moore, from the state police, stepped forward with a clipboard and gloves. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," she said gently, "I need your permission before we open it." Jacob didn't hesitate. "Do it," Rachel nodded. She turned the latches with quiet clicks. The lid creaked open, and then the breath seemed to leave the earth. It was empty. No teddy bear, no books, no little bracelet with plastic beads and Lily's name spelled out in crooked letters. Just clean, white satin, untouched, undisturbed, as if no one had ever been inside. Emily swayed on her feet. Her sister caught her before she collapsed. Sheriff Walker's jaw clenched. He reached for his radio, but before he could speak, Axel lunged forward, dragging his leash from Jacob's grip. Everyone braced, afraid he'd dive into the casket, but he'd DID in single quotes instead. Axel circled it, sniffed its edges, then sat back and let out a single, soul-deep howl that rolled across the cemetery like thunder, a sound that didn't ask for permission. Sound that said, "Now do you believe me?" Back at the sheriff's office, everything changed. "This isn't a drowning," Walker said, pacing in front of a map of the lake. "This is a missing person case, possibly abduction, possibly staged." Deputy Holloway, young and nervous, stared at the open file folder on the table, but Tyler Kane saw her go under. "No," Walker said firmly. "Tyler Kane," said he, "saw her go under. Big difference." Detective Rachel Moore leaned over the table, flipping through Lily's original case file. There's no body, no trace, and the death certificate was signed by Dr. Collins without physical evidence. She tapped the page. That's sloppy at best. At worst, it's deliberate. Jacob stood in the doorway, arms crossed, still covered, in dirt from the cemetery. "You think the doctor's involved?" he asked quietly. Moore shrugged. "It's too early to say, but it's clear someone tampered with that casket. We'll have the coroner test the interior for any trace DNA, but my guess, the items were never placed inside at all." Emily entered the room, holding something in her hand, Lily's hairbrush. "Axel brought this to me last night," she said, from under her bed. He pulled 5 bristles out and buried each one in a different spot around the yard. Walker frowned. "Why 5? No idea," she replied, "but it wasn't random. He knew exactly what he was doing." Rachel stood up. "I want to dig up those spots today." Jacob nodded. "I'll show you." That afternoon, with the sky still brooding above them, they followed Axel's buried bristles. At the 3rd location, beneath a patch of ivy, Jacob struck something hard with his shovel. He bent down and pulled it out. A receipt, soaked but intact, from a gas station 50 miles away, time-stamped just hours after Lily disappeared. Name on the card, Tyler Kane. "Why would he be that far away so soon?" Walker asked. "He was supposed to be at the lake when she went missing," Jacob said slowly. He shouted to the lifeguards. "Got everyone looking, and maybe that's exactly what he wanted," Moore added. "To be seen helping while someone else moved Lily." That night, Sheriff Walker sat at his kitchen table, staring at a printed copy of Kane's rental application. The social security number listed belonged to a man who died in 1998. Fake identity, fake hero. He picked up his phone. "We're reopening this case officially, and I want every piece of evidence Tyler Kane ever touched tested. Start with the dock, the picnic site, the boathouse, and the cabin." Jacob's voice came from behind him. Walker turned. "What?" "Cabin. The one Axel led us to this afternoon," Jacob said. "An old place off the trail. Looked like no one had lived there in years." Moore chimed in. "I checked it out. The floorboards had been pried up, there was a rug, and underneath, a bracelet." She placed it on the table inside a plastic bag. Emily gasped. "That's Lily's. I made that for her 5th birthday. How'd it end up in a cabin 50 miles away?" Walker asked softly. Jacob didn't answer, because he already knew. By the following morning, the FBI had joined the investigation. Caniff, that was even his real name, had vanished 2 weeks after Lily's funeral. No forwarding address. Paid. Cash, no digital trail. Moore combed through security footage from nearby towns. At a gas station near a church in Mapleton, an elderly woman had captured a van with Ohio plates on her dashcam. The time had closed years earlier, and the route it took, north toward the Canadian border. Meanwhile, Axel's behavior shifted again. He no longer went to the cemetery. Now, he made a new route each morning, sniffing along playgrounds, school fences, the ice cream shop Lily had loved. "He's checking for fresh scent," Dr. Karen Lewis, a canine behavior specialist, explained. "German shepherds can remember individual scents for years. What he's doing isn't searching randomly, it's building a map." Jacob followed Axel daily now, a leash in one hand, a notebook in the other. Dot every stop, every turn, every pause. Hope can look a lot like madness, but sometimes it's both. That evening, Axel stopped at the edge of the woods behind the high school. He sniffed the air, tail stiff, and let out a sharp bark. Jacob followed his gaze to a narrow trail half covered in leaves, a trail that led he now remembered to a place he hadn't thought of in years, the old water treatment plant shut down a decade ago. No one had any reason to go near it unless someone wanted to hide something. The building was a skeleton, long abandoned, tucked between forgotten trees and rusted fence posts. The Maple Ridge Water Treatment Facility hadn't pumped a drop in 10 years. Vines had claimed the siding, graffiti scrawled like scars across the walls. To a kid, it might have seemed like a clubhouse. To Jacob Miller, standing with Axel at the edge of the clearing, it looked like a crime scene no one had found it used. "To be county property," he muttered to Detective Rachel Moore, who'd caught up after he radioed her from the trail. "Closed when they updated the system. Hasn't seen a soul since." Scanning the windows with practiced eyes, Axel tugged at the leash, nose low, posture alert. He wasn't searching, he was tracking. "Let him lead," Rachel said, stepping aside. Jacob unclipped the leash. Axel moved fast but focused, heading straight for a smaller building behind the main Plant-A-Squat utility. shed with a padlocked door and thick undergrowth around the base. The dog scratched at the door, then stopped suddenly and sniffed the ground. Jacob leaned in. He's found something. There were footprints in the mud, fresh, crisp, and deep. Not from hikers, from boots. Rachel's tone sharpened. Somebody's been here recently. She stepped back, radioing in. Walker, it's more. We've got probable cause. Unknown suspects may be active. Need backup ASAP. Then she drew her weapon. They moved in carefully, the way people do when they don't know what's behind a door, but sense that something terrible waits. Jacob grabbed a rusted pipe near the fence. Rachel gave him a quick look. Let me lead. He nodded but didn't let go of the pipe. 3 sharp strikes to the old padlock, and the metal gave with a groan. The door creaked open. The smell hit them first. Damp air, cigarette smoke, mold. Underneath it all something sterile and wrong, like bleach hiding decay. The room was maybe 12 feet across. Empty, except for a single chair, a table with a lantern, and several boxes lining the wall, each labeled with dates and codes. The floor was uneven, with a faded rug in the center. Axel charged straight to the rug. Axel. Wait, Jacob started, but it was too late. The dog began tearing it aside, revealing a set of loose floorboards beneath. Rachel covered the room. Small Ziploc bag. Jacob's breath caught. Rachel lifted it carefully, holding it up to the light. A child's bracelet. Plastic beads, faded now, but unmistakable, spelled out in shaky letters, L.I.L. Jacob staggered back. That was in her casket. Not anymore, Rachel said grimly. She turned to her radio. We have evidence of movement. Possible. Trafficking site, repeat this, is real. 2 hours later, the clearing buzzed with law enforcement. Sheriff Walker arrived with tactical support. The FBI followed, roping off the scene like a battlefield. The boxers inside the utility shed were examined and cataloged. Inside were children's belongings, ID cards, stuffed animals, socks, and labeled bags of small trinkets. Each one documented, each one tagged by name, date, and origin. It wasn't just Lily. There were dozens of names. Most were already on missing persons registries. Some were presumed dead drownings, camp accidents, runaways, all with no body recovered. This is a trophy room, one of the FBI agents muttered. They're tracking them, tagging them, like merchandise. Jacob stood silent, staring at a pink shoelace coiled in a Ziploc bag, marked Lakehurst, NC. June 22 to dot, the world blurred around him. They brought Emily to the sheriff's office that night. She sat across from Rachel and Walker in a small conference room with beige walls and humming fluorescents. Jacob held her hand. Axel curled at their feet. Rachel spread out the evidence across the table. Photos, labels, logs. Then she placed a file in front of them, labeled Miller, L. Inside were surveillance images of Lily. Some were old photos taken without consent in town, on her bike, walking to school, holding Axel's leash. Others were new.2new.1 showed Lily with short-cropped hair, standing in what looked like a backyard white farmhouse, green shutters. A timestamp in the corner marked it 3 weeks ago. Emily gasped. That's her. Jacob's voice cracked. She's alive. Walker leaned forward. We think she's being moved again. These logs, he tapped a paper with codes and dates, show transfers every 3 to 4 months. And look here. He pointed to a line highlighted in yellow, October 15th, transfer, complete Cumberland property. Rachel checked her watch. Today's the 15th. It's happening today. An FBI field unit mobilized within the hour. Data pulled from the shipping logs led to 3 potential properties across state lines, all rural. 1, a former dairy farm in northern Ohio, matched recent activity linked to a shell company used in other child trafficking cases as the convoy rolled out. Jacob gripped Axel's harness in the back seat of the command vehicle. I'm going with you, he told the agent in charge. No civilians, the agent started to say. But Rachel cut him off. He's not just a father. He's got Axel. That dog found what no radar, drone, or tech ever did. We bring him. The agent hesitated, then nodded. Once the perimeter is secure, he and the dog can enter with a handler. But only then. Axel, resting at Jacob's feet, let out a low, eager whine. The sun was rising as they reached the Cumberland property and old farm, surrounded by forest and cornfields. barely visible from the road. The FBI tactical team fanned out, moving like shadows through the mist, through binoculars. Jacob saw movement in the window's small figures. A dog barked somewhere inside. A van was parked near the barn. Walker's voice came through the radio. Thermal shows 8 kids inside, several adults. Looks like we've got M. The command crackled again. All units in position. Execute on my mark. 3, 2, Ongo black-clad agents swarmed the house. Doors crashed open. Orders were shouted. Jacob held Axel's harness tight. Then came the call. Children secured. First floor clear. We're moving up. Now, Rachel said, go. Jacob didn't run. Axel did, as they crossed the threshold of the old farmhouse. Jacob saw them children, gathered in the front room, wrapped in blankets, faces blank with shock. An agent was trying to identify each one. But Axel didn't pause. He bolted down the hallway. Tail stiff, nose pressed to the floor. Door stood ajar. Axel pushed through. Jacob stepped inside, and the world stopped. There, curled on a small cot, was a thin girl with chopped brown hair and frightened eyes too big for her face. She looked up, and in a voice that cracked like breaking glass, she said, "Daddy." His arms opened. Lily launched herself into them. "Axel," barked one sharp, joyous and circled them both. "I knew you'd come," Lily whispered into her father's shirt. "I told Axel every night where I was. I told him about the shutters and the road and the tree. I told him, in my mind, I knew he'd hear me." Jacob's face crumpled. "We heard you, baby. We heard you." Lily wouldn't let go of Axel Dodaz. The FBI agents moved quietly around the attic room, documenting the scene. Dust particles danced in the early morning light. Lily stayed curled in her father's lap, arms wrapped around the thick neck of the dog who'd found her when no one else could. Her voice was hoarse. Her hands were trembling, but she was awake, alive downstairs. The farmhouse buzzed with controlled urgency medical personnel triaging the rescued children. FBI agents logging evidence, officers securing suspects in plastic cuffs. But here, in this small attic beneath a slanted roof, time had stopped. "Daddy," Lily whispered, her eyes searching Jacob's. "Are you really here, or is this another trick?" Jacob swallowed the lump in his throat. "We're really here, baby. Me, Mom, Axel. We're taking you home." "I knew he'd come," she said, pressing her forehead to Axel's. "I told him everything in my head." Every night the dog closed his eyes, tail gently thumping against the floor. His breathing was shallow, too shallow. They didn't wait. A medical transport was already staged on the property for the children. Jacob and Lily rode with 2 paramedics to the Cleveland Children's Trauma Center, while Axel was rushed separately to the attached veterinary emergency wing. A special gurney had been retrofitted for him, blankets tucked tight around his body. Monitors already attached. Stable for now, one of the techs said. But barely. In the ER hallway, Emily Miller met them, sprinting down the corridor with tears streaming, nearly collapsing when she saw Lily in Jacob's arms. "Mom," she kissed her forehead again and again. "We missed you. Oh God, we missed you so much." Behind them, nurses swarmed Axel's gurney, wheeling him toward surgery. Lily broke away, panic flashing in her eyes. "Wait, where are they taking him?" Jacob crouched beside her. "He's hurt, sweetheart. He fought hard to protect you. They're going to fix him." "No," Lily sobbed. "He just found me. Don't let him die." Inside the operating suite, Dr. Melissa Chen, Axel's scans. Ruptured spleen, likely internal bleeding, broken rib. "We've got minutes." Maybe, she told her team. "Start fluids. Prep for emergency splenectomy. Get that heart monitor on." Axel's vitals flickered weakly. His gums were pale. His breathing was uneven. Moved. Back in the children's wing, a nurse handed Lily a stethoscope and gently placed the earpieces into her ears. "Dr. Chen had an idea," she explained. She said, "Axel knows your heartbeat. It's how dogs remember safety. Sound, smell, rhythm. So we're going to record it." Lily blinked up at her eyes, red-rimmed. "You can do that." "We already are." She lifted the microphone toward Lily's chest. "Just speak." Lily pressed her lips close to the recorder. "It's me. I'm safe. You found me, like I knew you would. I'm here, and now it's your turn to come back. Please, I need you." In the conference room across the hospital, Sheriff Ben Walker, Detective Rachel Moore, and 2 FBI agents. poured over a pile of documents seized from the farmhouse and the hidden shed. "It's worse than we thought," Moore said, laying out the files like evidence at trial. "There's a coded ledger dates, locations, and initials that correspond to children listed in their trophy archive." Walker pointed to a familiar name. "They moved her between 3 states," the agent said grimly. "Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Always rural areas, always undershell companies. They use fake adoption covers, trafficking terms disguised as shipping codes. And here's the sick parts: of the buyers asked for proof." Proof, Walker asked. Videos, photos, personal items. She placed a bag on the table. Inside was Lily's digital wristwatch. "We found this in the attic with her. But look closer." Walker flipped it over. A tiny camera lens blinked back at him. "They used it to record from her point of view," Moore explained. "Likely sent the footage to buyers." The FBI agent turned another file around. "Here's what we didn't expect. The local Dr. Redward Collins was in deeper than we thought." Jacob, standing in the doorway now, with coffee gone cold in his hands, stepped forward. "What do you mean?" His medical credentials allowed them to sign off on fake deaths. He helped file at least 7 falsified death certificates, including Lily's. But here's where it gets worse. He kept a journal, and in it he names their recruiter, Tyler Kane. Jacob asked, "No, higher up." Kane was a field operator. The recruiter worked regionally across several counties. "We're tracing it now." Walker flipped through the pages of the journal. "The dog knows," he read aloud. "Somehow, that animal knew she wasn't in the grave. I should have listened." Moore sat back, shaking her head. "They underestimated a German Shepherd." In the children's trauma wing, Lily was finally resting her hand, resting lightly on Axel's leash. Now looped over the edge of the hospital bed like an anchor dot, Jacob sat beside her, Emily leaning on his shoulder. The room was quiet. Monitors beeped in the background. Lily stirred in her sleep. "He saved her," Emily whispered. "When everyone else stopped looking, he didn't." Jacob wiped his eyes. "We need to save him now." Dr. Chen entered with a tired but hopeful look. She said, "Axel lost a lot of blood. His spleen's gone, and there was damage to the surrounding tissue. But he made it." Emily gasped. They rolled Lily's wheelchair into the ICU. Axel lay beneath a blanket, IVs running from both front legs. His breathing was steady but shallow. Lily reached out, fingers trembling. "Hi, boy," she whispered. "I'm here, just like you found me." Axel's ear twitched, then his tail thumped once. Lily smiled through tears. "I knew you'd hear me." The story broke nationwide that evening. News trucks lined the hospital sidewalk. Interviews ran nonstop. Sheriff Walker, the FBI, Dr. Chen, but none of it mattered to the Millers. The daughter was alive, and the dog who brought her home was still breathing. Back in Silver Ridge, people tied yellow ribbons to trees. Churches rang their bells. Even Frank Hollis, the old cemetery caretaker, sat at the local diner and choked on his coffee when someone said, "Maybe the dog knew more than we did." "You think?" he muttered. By the end of the week, 17 children had been rescued in coordinated raids, all from cases previously ruled accidental drownings or disappearances, and every one of them had something in common. A dog had tried to warn someone. Most had been ignored, except for one. Axel, for weeks after the raid. The Miller house in Silver Ridge felt like a home again. The porch light flickered a warm glow across the front steps. Tulips bloomed by the mailbox, Lily's favorite yellow ones. The wind chimes above the porch played a soft melody each time a breeze passed by. For the first time in months, life felt like it was moving toward something good. Inside, Lily Miller, now freshly 9, sat cross-legged on the living room rug. Whispering to Axel, who lay beside her with his head on her lap. His bandages were gone now, replaced by a shaved patch of fur and a slight limp when he walked. His tail wagged lazily as Lily brushed him gently with a soft comb. "You remember the red barn," she whispered. "That was the second place they took me. The roof leaked when it rained." Axel blinked slowly. "I used to pretend the leak was Morse code," she continued, "like someone was sending me messages." In the kitchen, Jacob and Emily listened in silence. They didn't interrupt. Dr. Winters, Lily's trauma therapist, had told them not to. Let her talk. Let her unspool the story in her own time. She talks to him every night, Emily said, her voice low, not just like a dog, like a journal, like he's holding her memories. He is, Jacob replied. He was there before, and he's here now. He's the only thing that never broke. At the Cleveland FBI field office, the investigation continued at a relentless pace. Detective Rachel Moore stood in front of a corkboard covered in red string. Photographs, sticky notes, and copies of Dr. Edward Collins' journal. We've identified 3 more shell companies, she told the task force, all tied to rural properties used for temporary holding, 2 in Indiana, 1 in western Pennsylvania. But here's the breakthrough. She pointed to a photo of a white farmhouse with green shutters. This one was used repeatedly. Every rotation of children came through it. It was the last stop before the border. Where's the buyer list? Asked one of the agents. Moore frowned. Encrypted. Still working on it. But thanks to Axel, we've got fingerprints, DNA, footage, and most importantly, survivor testimony. She clicked a button, projecting a still image on the screen. Lily's digital watch camera feed, a shaky view of a kitchen. A man's voice, the sound of a door locking. That footage was uploaded to a private server. We've got the IP traces now. Another agent leaned forward. If we can find the distribution network, we can break the ring wide open. Moore finished. Back at home, Lily had a new routine. She attended school part-time, met with her therapist twice a week, and spent every afternoon with Axel. In the backyard, the dog was now officially certified as a therapy animal. A decision fast-tracked after his involvement in the investigation. The badge on his vest read, Axel Certified Trauma Response K9. That afternoon, Lily stood at the edge of her school's playground, hand on Axel's collar. Her classmates hovered nearby, unsure how to approach. Lily turned to Axel. Okay, you first. The dog stepped forward and plopped down in front of the swings, tongue lolling, tail wagging. One of the kids giggled. Then another walked up and petted him. Within minutes, Lily was surrounded, smiling, talking, holding Axel's leash like a lifeline. From the car, Emily wiped her eyes. He's doing more therapy than half the counselors. In town, she murmured. That evening, Sheriff Ben Walker visited the Millers with an envelope from the governor's office. Thought I'd bring this in person, he said, setting it on the kitchen counter. Jacob opened it. Inside was an invitation to a special ceremony at the state capitol. Axel was being awarded the state Animal Hero Medal D, first of its kind. Jacob read the letter aloud. For extraordinary service and loyalty in the face of human evil. Lily looked up from the table, eyes wide. He gets a medal. Emily nodded. And a parade, too. Lily threw her arms around Axel. You're gonna be famous. Jacob smiled. He already is, kiddo. Meanwhile, FBI raids across the Midwest led to the arrest of 14 additional suspects linked to the trafficking network. 2 attempted to flee the country. 1 died in a shootout in Wisconsin. But the dominoes were falling. The biggest break came from a suspect who chose to talk. Michael Lawson, formerly known as Tyler Kane, agreed to testify in exchange for protective custody. He was middle management. Moore explained during a follow-up meeting with Jacob and Emily, handled false identities, transport routes, local recruitment, and Lily, Jacob asked. She was chosen, Moore said flatly, because of her intelligence profile, her appearance, her adaptability. Dr. Collins provided the referral. Emily gasped. He delivered her. He was our family doctor. No more, said quietly. He justified it to himself for years. But his journal, his last entry, was a confession. Jacob looked down at Axel, resting beside the chair. You always knew, he said softly, even when we didn't. 3 nights later, Lily had her first real nightmare since the rescue. She woke screaming, kicking, sobbing into the pillow. Jacob rushed into her room, heart pounding, but Axel was already there. Curled on the bed, pressed against her chest, his nose buried under her chin, Lily's sobs slowed. Her breathing evened, and when she looked up at her father, her voice was barely a whisper. He came first. Jacob sat on the edge of the bed, blinking back tears. You're safe, sweetheart. You're home. By the next morning, Lily was back to reading her favorite book aloud to Axel on the couch, and the moral of the story, she said, closing. The cover is that sometimes the person who saves you doesn't talk at all. Axel thumped his tail. "Want to hear it again?" she asked. He barked once Emily stepped into the room with pancakes. "He's the only dog I know who gets story time and second breakfast. He deserves it," Lily said proudly. "He saved me." Later that week, the support group for recovered families met in the Millers' backyard. Parents sat in lawn chairs, kids played tag around the swing set, and Axel now heeled laid in the grass while 3 younger children braided ribbons into his fur. A mom approached Emily with tears in her eyes. "My son wouldn't talk to anyone, but he talked to Axel." Emily nodded. "He's got a gift. Or maybe he's just got heart." That evening, as the sunset painted the sky in gold and rose, Lily stood at the edge of the yard beside her dad. "I don't remember every detail," she said, "but I remember what I felt. I was scared and cold, and I kept thinking, they're not coming." Jacob put a hand on her shoulder. "But Axel never gave up," she added. "He knew, even when everyone else forgot." They watched the sky in silence. "You ready for your speech next week?" Jacob asked, nudging her gently. She nodded. "Yeah, I'm going to tell the truth about everything." She looked down at Axel, who gazed up at her with calm, golden eyes. "About him," she said, "and how he found me when nobody else could." The state capitol in Lansing was packed. It wasn't the kind of crowd you usually saw on a spring Wednesday afternoon. No protests, no political rallies, just families, officers, and rows of quietly emotional strangers in folding chairs, all waiting to witness something rare. On the stage beneath the state seal, the governor of Michigan stood at a polished podium, flanked by a local sheriff, 2 FBI agents, and a flag-draped banner that read, "Service, Loyalty, Courage." In the front row sat Lily Miller, dressed in a navy blue dress with a sunflower pin on her chest. Her mom and dad sat beside her, and lying at her feet, head high, vest on, tail still, was Axel Dot. No longer just her dog. Now, officially, a state hero. "I'd like to begin," the governor said, "by reminding you that heroes don't always look the way we expect. Some wear uniforms, some wear stethoscopes, and some, like the one we honor today, wear fur." A ripple of laughter passed through the audience, but make no mistake, what this dog accomplished was nothing short of remarkable. When hope was gone, Axel held on. When everyone else believed Lily Miller was lost, Axel believed she was out there, and he didn't stop until she was found. The crowd broke into applause. The governor turned to the family. "Jacob, Emily, Lily, you've shown all of us what courage looks like. And Axel, well, he's reminded us that love has a nose for the truth." He reached down and clipped a gold medallion onto Axel's vest. The dog didn't move, but his tail just slightly wagged when it was her turn to speak. Lily stepped up to the microphone with her notes in her hand and Axel at her side. "My name is Lily," she said, voice quiet but steady. "I was taken, but I'm not just a girl who was rescued. I'm the girl who was found, because a dog didn't give up." There was a long pause. She looked down at Axel, then back at the crowd. "Axel is more than my dog. He's the only one who heard me when I was trapped. Every night, I told him where I was in my head, and somehow, he listened. I don't know how, I just know he did." A hush settled across the auditorium. "I used to think nobody was coming, but Axel kept believing when I couldn't, and that's what saved me." Another pause. Not everyone gets a hero like mine, but maybe everyone deserves one. The applause was thunderous. Axel barked once. Everyone laughed. The ceremony aired on local and national news. Lily's speech went viral within 24 hours. News anchors called it the story that stopped the internet. But for the Millers, none of that mattered. What mattered was the quiet that followed, peaceful, everyday things. Breakfasts with pancakes again. Homework at the kitchen table. Walks in the evening light. Lily slept through the night now, most nights. Axel did too, though he still slept lightly, ears twitching at unfamiliar sounds. Ever the guardian. One warm Friday afternoon, Sheriff Ben Walker stopped by the house in his patrol car. He brought a sealed manila envelope. "I thought you'd want to see this," he said to Jacob. They found it in one of the safe houses during the last raid. Inside were photograph-sold Polaroids, grainy and damaged. But there she was, Lily, sitting on a bench. Lily eating soup. Lily with short hair, staring out a window. They documented everything, Walker said. The FBI thinks it was part of how they proved custody to buyers. Jacob felt his stomach twist. Emily looked away, studied each photo calmly. I remember that window, she said. It faced the woods. Then she handed the photos back. They don't scare me anymore, because I'm not in those places now. Walker smiled. You're one brave girl. I learned from Axel, she said simply. That evening, the Millers sat on the porch with Axel lying nearby. The smell of barbecue in the air? Remember when he chewed through the garage door to get to the cemetery? Jacob asked, chuckling. He destroyed 3 fences in 2 weeks, Emily added. We thought he was losing his mind. No, Lily said, petting Axel's head. He just knew something we didn't. Jacob spoke. You know what gets me? If he hadn't kept digging. If he hadn't started dragging the other dogs with him. We'd still think she was dead, Emily finished. Lily nodded. And I'd still be gone. In the weeks that followed, the Millers joined efforts to help other families of recovered children. They shared Axel's story at school assemblies, trauma support groups, and even law enforcement conferences. But Lily insisted that Axel come with her every time. He's part of the story. She always said, the most important part, at one event, a little boy named Mason rescued from a similar situation in Indiana. If he could pet Axel, of course, Lily said, kneeling beside the boy. Mason reached out, hesitant. Then slowly, gently, he touched Axel's fur. The dog didn't move, but his eyes softened, and Mason smiled for the first time in months. Eventually, summer came. Axel's strength returned fully. He chased squirrels again, carried sticks the size of fence posts, played tug-of-war like nothing had ever happened. One night, under a blanket of stars, Lily whispered to him on the lawn. I know you can't stay forever, she said, but as long as you're here, I'm safe. Axel licked her hand and rested his head in her lap. Some stories end with a fade to black dot. This one ends in yellow sunlight, in laughter, in a girl who survived, and the dog who never gave up. Because sometimes, what saves us isn't logic or law, or even luck sometimes. It's loyalty, pure and simple. Axel didn't understand missing persons files, or state lines, or shell companies, but he understood one thing. She was still out there, and he was going to find her. Thank you for following this incredible story about Axel and Lily Dot. We hope it reminded you that love doesn't always come with words, and that heroes don't always stand on 2 legs. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever known an animal who seemed to know something no one else could? Explain. Share your story in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to Heroes for Animals for more real-life stories of courage, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between animals and the people they love.